The war in Gaza has reportedly killed 10,000 people on both sides, maybe more. The Israel Defense Forces are on the ground hunting the terrorists of Hamas in Gaza now, looking in the tunnels and beneath the hospitals where civilians are used as human shields by those terrorists. Block by block and piece by piece, the IDF is systematically targeting every terrorist they can find and delivering swift and final justice when they do. But the war is not popular on the world stage or with the neighbors of the Jewish state, even those that have been at peace with Israel for generations. Even so, the war is continuing, and talk of a ceasefire being shot down by those at the highest levels of the Israeli government. Ambassador Herzog says a ceasefire is not going to happen at this point. Listen.
So I want to distinguish between a pause for a few days in order to get hostages released and a ceasefire. The Prime Minister was referring to a ceasefire. We are against a ceasefire because that would allow Hamas to retain power, to regroup, to rearm, and strike again.
But it would be a ceasefire for a few days?
This is...
is that the difference?
We're talking about pausing the fighting for a few days so we can get the hostages out.
Now, the outcry being heard on the streets of London, Paris, and New York, and Washington here at home. But it is not discouraging the IDF at all, or their mission to destroy Hamas at all costs, and weighing whether a strike on Iran or Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon is in order. Those considerations are made every single day, every single hour sometimes. On ABC News over the weekend, the Israeli ambassador to America says the focus of the operation is to destroy the terrorists and their organizations. Here's Ambassador Herzog.
Let me say, every loss of human life, Israeli or Palestinian, is a tragedy. We are not after innocent civilians. We are after the terrorists who've been hiding behind civilians. I would be very careful about Hamas numbers. All the numbers you hear coming out of Gaza are Hamas numbers. Nobody really knows how many people died there. There's no denying that there is collateral damage, that the civilians died, but nobody knows how many. And you and I don't know.
So the collateral damage, the children.
You don't know, and I don't know how many of them are terrorists and how many of them are civilians. Nobody really knows. I can tell you that...
Well, you certainly don't think the children are terrorists.
Never said that, never implied that. And there are children there. But in the overall numbers, I don't know and you don't know how many of them are terrorists and how many of them are innocent civilians.
See how he had to correct her? He never said that children are terrorists. He said every loss of life is tragic. But Israel neither looked for this war, nor asked for this war, nor started this war. But for those in the region, these past 6 weeks have been very tense. And despite the claims by Israel that they are not targeting civilians and certainly not children, their neighbors are on edge. Their neighbors are certainly on edge. The Jordanian ambassador to the United States says the ongoing war is angering the people of Jordan, which has had a peace treaty with Israel in place for more than 30 years. And they're joining the concerned warning of a regional wider war. Listen.
I wouldn't say the word destabilizing, but it is putting a lot of pressure on His Majesty and on the government because people are angry. They see the images every day. I mean, we're all angry. It's very humiliating. It's very hurtful, and it's inhuman. And we're just wondering how far is this going to go. We're calling for a ceasefire. We're calling to go back to negotiations. And as the senator said, the only way to be pro-Israeli is to ask for peace, and the only way to be pro-Palestinian is to ask for peace. And this is common grounds for both of us. So we need to go further on that. And on the settlers, just as a word in the West Bank, the settlers are going haywire, unhinged, and are not caring about the law, and nobody's able to stop them. Every day there are 8 attacks on Palestinians, and they are mistreating them, humiliating them, sending videos all over social media of them naked and in situations that are unacceptable.
Yeah, unacceptable. Now, much of the talk these past several days has been on the idea of this military pause, for a few days anyway. But as you've already heard, the push by those on the left for a total ceasefire, which doesn't appear to be likely, and that leaves the fate of more than 200 hostages in doubt, their fate completely uncertain. Those were the hostages taken back on October the 7th, when Hamas attacked Israel unprovoked and without warning, killing 1,400 civilians, maybe more. U.S. officials not clear, not able to tell us how many of those hostages are being held in Gaza by the terrorist group Hamas, but they do believe there are still Americans alive and being held, and hopeful they can, well, rescue some of them.